Petr Yan is entering UFC Abu Dhabi with sharp focus and a sense of urgency, seeing his upcoming bout against Marcus McGee not just as a return to the win column, but as a crucial opportunity to re-establish himself as a top contender in the stacked bantamweight division. For Yan, this isn't just another fight, it's a high-stakes audition for a shot at regaining the UFC title he once held. Despite McGee being unranked and a relative newcomer compared to the caliber of opponents Yan has faced in the past, the Russian isn't taking him lightly. Instead, he understands that in today's UFC, every moment in the cage counts, and a dominant performance could go a long way in reminding everyone, including UFC matchmakers, that No Mercy is still one of the most dangerous fighters in the division. Currently sitting at number 3 in the bantamweight rankings, Yan knows he's well positioned to make a leap right back into the title mix, especially with the timing of this fight falling just before UFC 320, where the division's championship picture will come into clearer focus. On that night, Merab Dvalishvili will defend his belt against Corey Sandhagen in what promises to be a stylistic clash between Merab's relentless wrestling and Sandhagen's rangy technical striking. Yan has already bested Sandhagen in the past and is clearly eager for a rematch with either man. In his own words, a strong, comprehensive win over McGee should make his case undeniable. He stated confidently that no one ranked above him deserves the next title shot more than he does, and that his performance on Saturday will reinforce that truth. What makes this next phase of Yan's journey particularly compelling is how analytical and self-aware he seems. Reflecting on his fight with Sandhagen, Yan acknowledged that he barely threw his right hand during the 5-round battle, something he says would change drastically in a second meeting. It's this kind of introspection that signals growth and adjustment, especially important for a fighter who's seen both the highs of holding UFC gold and the frustrations of controversial decisions and narrow defeats. His willingness to serve as a backup for UFC 320 further underlines his commitment and readiness to step into the spotlight should the opportunity arise. For fans, this weekend's fight isn't just about whether Yan can beat Marcus McGee. It's about whether Yan can turn the page, make a definitive statement, and force his name back into the title conversation with the kind of performance that makes it impossible for the UFC to overlook him. Whether it's a rematch with Sandhagen, a long-awaited clash with Dvalishvili, or even a wildcard scenario, Petr Yan is treating UFC Abu Dhabi as a career-defining moment, and based on his mindset, he plans to make it count. Tom Aspinall is stepping into UFC 321 with a purpose that goes beyond simply defending his heavyweight crown. This October 25th in Abu Dhabi, he'll face Ciryl in what marks his first official title defense as the undisputed UFC heavyweight champion. The matchup has been a long time in the making. According to Aspinall, it's the 4th time the two have been scheduled to fight, with previous attempts falling through. Now it's finally happening, and Aspinall isn't treating this like just another title defense. He's treating it like a mission to remove Ciryl from the championship conversation once and for all. Speaking directly to fans on Instagram, Aspinall didn't mince words. He acknowledged the build-up, the delays, and the stakes. He knows Gane is stepping into his 3rd UFC title fight, having fallen short in his previous attempts, once by decision against Francis Ngannou, and then via a quick submission loss to Jon Jones. For Aspinall, this is a chance to close the chapter on Cyryl's title aspirations permanently. This is Cyryl's 3rd title shot. "We're going to try and get rid of Ciryl from the title picture for good," he said, delivering the kind of statement that leaves no room for ambiguity. Aspinall's confidence is rooted in dominance. Since returning from injury, he's strung together explosive wins, finishing top contenders like Sergey Pavlovich, Curtis Blaydes, and Marcin Tybura, all in the 1st round. The longest of those fights didn't even last a minute and a half. His combination of speed, athleticism, and technical precision makes him one of the most dangerous heavyweights we've seen in years. He's also embraced the spotlight with a calm focus, never overstating his case, but consistently delivering in the octagon. Meanwhile, Gane enters the bout with far more questions surrounding him. Although he's coming off a split decision win over Alexander Volkov, the performance raised eyebrows. Many felt it lacked the urgency and finishing instincts expected from a man trying to claw his way back to the top. His skill set, elite footwork, slick striking, and composure hasn't always translated against the upper echelon, particularly when it comes to grappling heavy opponents or fighters with explosive finishing ability like Aspinall. Still, Gane remains a dangerous challenge, and if he pulls off the win, it would be a defining moment in his career. But Aspinall isn't planning on letting that happen. This isn't just a title defense for him, it's a statement of control over the division's future. He wants to put a definitive stamp on the heavyweight landscape, and for that, he believes Ciryl needs to be removed from the equation. The tension, the history, and the stakes all align for what should be a pivotal and potentially career-defining fight for both men in Abu Dhabi. Arman Tsarukyan has become the division's boogeyman, a name whispered more in avoidance than anticipation. Despite being the #1 contender in the UFC lightweight rankings, he finds himself iced out of the title conversation, even after stepping up as a backup for the recent championship bout between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira. And it's not just fans speculating. Topuria himself, the new lightweight champion, openly refuses to entertain the idea of fighting Tsarukyan, citing concerns over reliability and commitment. Topuria's stance, expressed bluntly in a recent interview, paints Tsarukyan as a risky gamble, not because of his skill set, everyone knows he's elite, but because of the late withdrawal that derailed his initial shot at Islam Makhachev. That back injury during the weight cut has given Topuria enough reason to question Tsarukyan's dependability. "Ah, my back," he mocked, expressing zero sympathy or trust. Even after Tsarukyan successfully made weight as the title fight's backup, Topuria remains unmoved, insisting that the Armenian needs to fight again, and win, before he'd ever entertain the idea of sharing the octagon with him. But Topuria's words went further than just skepticism. They bordered on outright dismissal. He wasn't just saying not now, he was suggesting never. At one point, he even declared that if Tsarukyan were the mandatory challenger, he'd rather vacate his belt than defend it against him. Justin Gaethje isn't hiding his frustrations, and UFC commentator Daniel Cormier has taken notice. With the lightweight division in flux, Gaethje's stance has become increasingly clear. He wants a title shot, and if he doesn't get it, he's prepared to walk away from the sport entirely. Cormier, who's seen his fair share of stars clash with the UFC brass, doesn't think this approach will yield the result Gaethje is hoping for. In a recent video, Cormier broke down the situation, suggesting that Gaethje seems completely committed to the idea of either fighting for gold or not fighting at all. And while Cormier sympathizes with the sentiment, he warns that the UFC might not be swayed by such ultimatums, especially given the long list of contenders currently vying for a shot at Ilia Topuria's lightweight belt. "It sounds to me like Justin Gaethje, as he said before, hey, title fight or retirement. It sounds like he is more than willing to stand by that," Cormier said. "That would suck. MMA is better when Justin Gaethje is fighting. We just had to watch Dustin Poirier retire last weekend, and that absolutely sucked." Gaethje's warning comes at a time when Topuria's first title defense remains up in the air. Multiple names are circling the newly crowned champion. Arman Tsarukyan, who is ranked #1, is clearly in line from a meritocratic standpoint, but hasn't been given the green light. Max Holloway's stock is through the roof after his brutal BMF knockout of Gaethje, and despite being a featherweight, many are calling for his return to lightweight for another marquee fight. Meanwhile, Paddy Pimblett is rising quickly in popularity and just dominated Michael Chandler, making him a legitimate contender in the eyes of UFC matchmakers who value hype and commercial appeal as much as rankings. Justin seems very stern in the idea that if he has to fight Paddy Pimblett, he's not going to do it, Cormier continued. "That sucks because I don't know that it's going to make the UFC say we have to give Justin Gaethje a title fight. I don't know that they're going to do that, especially when you go through all the things that Arman has a case, Paddy has a case." Cormier's tone suggests he doesn't expect the UFC to hand Gaethje the title fight simply because of his demands. Gaethje has always been a fan favorite, known for his wild style and willingness to engage in brutal wars, but that doesn't always translate to leverage when it comes to matchmaking. The UFC is a business, and fighters who draw hard lines, especially ones who threaten to retire, don't often get what they want without playing ball first. It's the same promotion that let Francis Ngannou walk, after all. Gaethje has already fought for the undisputed title twice. He was submitted by Khabib Nurmagomedov in 2020, and again by Charles Oliveira in 2022. He rebounded with a win over Rafael Fiziev, and was lined up to face Holloway at UFC 300, where he was knocked out in brutal fashion. Despite the setback, Gaethje remains one of the top lightweights in the world, but with Topuria holding the belt now, the landscape is rapidly shifting. Even if Gaethje still believes he deserves a shot, he's now surrounded by contenders who are younger, healthier, and in some cases, more marketable in the UFC's eyes. Refusing to take a non-title fight could leave him on the sidelines indefinitely. And if he's serious about retiring, then we might have already seen the last of him in the octagon. Cormier clearly doesn't want to see that happen, but he's realistic about how the UFC operates. If Gaethje isn't willing to fight someone like Pimblett or Tsarukyan to stay in the mix, the UFC might move on without him, and just like that, one of the most exciting fighters of the last decade could be done. Sean Strickland may be on the sidelines for a while, and not because of an injury or a UFC matchmaking delay. The former UFC middleweight champion landed himself in serious hot water following an ugly incident at a June 29 event in Las Vegas. After his teammate Miles Hunsinger lost to Luis Hernandez, Strickland stormed the cage and punched Hernandez, an act that was caught from multiple angles and immediately went viral online. What started as a local regional event turned into a full-blown commission-level disciplinary case. While fight promotion scuffles and out-of-cage trash talk have increasingly become part of MMA's chaotic personality, Strickland's actions crossed a much firmer line. He wasn't just an observer. He was a licensed cornerman under the Nevada State Athletic Commission, NSAC, that night. That means storming the cage post-fight and striking a licensed fighter is viewed not just as a serious violation of sportsmanship, but as a violation of his licensure and responsibilities. The NSAC responded quickly, handing down an immediate suspension pending a formal disciplinary hearing. That hearing was supposed to happen on July 23rd, but the commission pushed Strickland's case to their August session, leaving him in limbo for at least another month. Until then, Strickland can't be booked to fight anywhere, since NSAC sanctions are recognized across the United States and generally honored by the UFC globally. In other words, Strickland is functionally frozen from competition. The punishment could be severe. For comparison, Arman Tsarukyan received a 9-month suspension and a $25,000 fine after punching a fan at UFC 300. Khabib Nurmagomedov was famously suspended 9 months and fined $500,000 after launching himself into Conor McGregor's corner following their UFC 229 fight. Strickland's situation arguably crosses deeper into NSAC jurisdiction territory, since he wasn't just acting out of adrenaline in the middle of a fight. He was there in an official capacity and attacked a competitor after a sanctioned bout. That could be enough for the NSAC to consider a harsher penalty, possibly a full year-long suspension. For Strickland, it's a costly blunder. He's been in high-profile discussions for potential matchups, including a possible rematch with Israel Adesanya. But all of that now gets pushed further down the line, if it remains on the table at all. Until the NSAC delivers its ruling, one of the UFC's most outspoken and polarizing figures will have to sit and wait, unable to compete and unable to escape the fallout of his outburst. Shara Magomedov isn't dwelling on the loss that ended his perfect record. In fact, he never cared much about preserving an undefeated streak in the first place. After 4 explosive performances under the UFC banner, the Dagestani striker known as Bullet tasted defeat for the first time in February. At UFC Saudi Arabia, he went 3 rounds with former Bellator standout Michael Venom Page, ultimately falling by unanimous decision. The loss brought his unblemished 15-0 record to a halt, but Magomedov says the pressure to remain undefeated never weighed on him the way it does for some fighters. Fighters with 0 losses often say that the weight of that record is heavy when they fight, that they worry a lot about the numbers, Magomedov said ahead of his UFC Abu Dhabi return. But my feeling before this fight is different from before the last one. I was never worried about that zero, unlike some of my fans who were. Now, Magomedov looks to rebound on one of the UFC's biggest international stages. He'll square off against Canadian middleweight veteran Marc-Andre Barriault this Saturday at Etihad Arena in Abu Dhabi. For Bullet, this is more than just a bounce-back opportunity. It's a chance to re-establish his status as one of the most dangerous, unorthodox strikers in the division. Barriault, a fan favorite known as Power Bar, isn't coming in cold. He's fresh off a statement win, having stopped Bruno Silva in just 87 seconds at UFC 315. That victory snapped a frustrating three-fight skid for the Canadian, and with his confidence renewed, he'll be looking to halt the Magomedov hype train once and for all. Magomedov, however, has no plans of letting his first loss derail his momentum. His goals remain ambitious and clear. "I'm pretty sure with this victory and maybe 2-3 more fights that I'm going to be right there, right back at the top of the division," he said. "Potentially, I'll be breathing already in the back of the top 5 if I show 1-2 good finishes, and I'll be right there. I'll be in the talks to potentially get the rematch." That rematch, of course, would be against Michael Page, who now finds himself in the mix among the UFC's elite welterweights. But for Magomedov, getting another crack at MVP isn't about revenge. It's about proving that one loss doesn't define a career. He's still young, still evolving, and still every bit the threat he was before Saudi Arabia. And if he gets past Barriault in Abu Dhabi, that climb back to the top begins in earnest. Reinier de Ridder isn't just thinking about Robert Whittaker. He's got his eyes on a much bigger prize, and he's ready to jump at the opportunity if things break his way. The former Division I championship title holder is set to make a major statement this Saturday when the UFC touches down in Abu Dhabi. He'll face off with ex-champion Robert Whittaker, a top 5 contender, and a fixture at the elite level of the middleweight division. A win there would catapult de Ridder straight into title contention, but in his mind, there might be an even faster route to the gold. That shortcut? A potential last-minute withdrawal from Khamzat Chimaev, who's currently slated to challenge UFC middleweight champ Dricus Du Plessis at UFC 319 in Chicago next month. Given Chimaev's history of pullouts and complications around fight week, including the infamous UFC 279 weigh-in disaster where he missed weight badly for his fight with Nate Diaz, de Ridder is staying ready. "I'm still hoping Khamzat pulls out last minute for UFC 319, de Ridder said in a recent interview. "It's 2 weeks after my fight, so maybe we get lucky. It wouldn't be a shock if something unexpected happened with Chimaev again." His career has been a blend of explosive dominance and frustrating inconsistency when it comes to making it to the cage. Pullouts against Leon Edwards, 3 of them, are still fresh in many fans' minds, and his originally scheduled bout with Whittaker had to be pushed back significantly due to delays. In contrast, de Ridder has been steady and increasingly dangerous inside the octagon. After arriving from one with a lot of hype and skepticism, he's quietly built a reputation as a finisher, notching stoppages against tough veterans like Gerald Meerschaert and Kevin Holland. Most recently, he handed Bo Nickel his first pro loss, smothering the decorated wrestler, and showing that he's not just a submission guy from Asia, he can hang and dominate at the UFC level too. Now, with momentum on his side, de Ridder knows a win over Whittaker in Abu Dhabi puts him in rare company. Not many middleweights have defeated the Reaper, and even fewer have done so convincingly. If he can manage that, de Ridder will make a powerful argument for a title shot, either as a backup in Chicago or next in line if the division moves forward as planned. Whether or not he gets the call to replace Chimaev, it's clear de Ridder isn't content with just climbing the ladder. He's ready to leap toward the throne if the opening presents itself, and with Chimaev's track record, he might not have to wait long. Tensions are far from settled between UFC bantamweight standout Sean O'Malley and former champion Cody Garbrandt, as the long-simmering feud between the two continues to escalate. While O'Malley has been no stranger to beefs with fellow fighters, most notably with Marlon Chito Vera and Aljamain Sterling, it's clear that Garbrandt still has O'Malley in his crosshairs, and he's not holding back. In a recent interview with MMA Fighting, Garbrandt didn't mince words when asked about Sean. The former 135-pound champ questioned O'Malley's legitimacy as a UFC title holder and suggested that the hype around the colorful striker is built on shaky ground. Garbrandt expressed outright disbelief that O'Malley had ever managed to climb to the top of the division, taking shots at his grappling credentials, or lack thereof, as a key weakness. "I would love to F him up," Garbrandt said bluntly. "He just always talks shh. I think he has an infatuation with me. He's so jealous of me, and I can't believe he became a world champion." According to Garbrandt, O'Malley's skill set has major gaps, especially when it comes to takedown defense and wrestling, and he pointed to O'Malley's fight with Merab Dvalishvili as proof that the champion can be overwhelmed by pressure and physicality. He can't wrestle for a lick, can't defend a takedown. I mean, Merab straight bullied him. Garbrandt, who has been publicly calling for the fight for some time, believes he has the perfect style to give O'Malley a rough night inside the octagon. "He's been calling me out forever, so I've been ready to fight that dude. I've got what it takes, I know how to beat this dude. The way that I fight, it'll be a bad night for him." He even claimed to have tagged UFC President Dana White on social media, pushing for the bout to be made official. "If that's the next fight they want to do, I think that's going to be a great pay-per-view fight. Good drawing." Garbrandt went on to contrast their fan bases, pointing out the difference in demographics. "He's got a good fan base, but they're younger, you know, the Twitch people, the video games. But I'm a dog, I would love that fight." The implication was clear. Garbrandt sees himself as the tougher, more battle-tested fighter, while O'Malley represents flash and internet hype more than grit and substance. Not one to back down, O'Malley recently fired back during an appearance on the Ariel Helwani show. While addressing some of Garbrandt's recent criticism, specifically about his performance in the Dvalishvili rematch, O'Malley sarcastically commented on Garbrandt's changing appearance, saying he realized his own face tattoos were embarrassing after seeing Garbrandt's look during a UFC Fight Night event in Atlanta. It was a jab that added fuel to the fire and proved that the animosity is mutual. Despite the disparity in their current rankings, O'Malley near the top of the division and Garbrandt still clawing his way back up, this feud continues to gain momentum. While some may dismiss the matchup as a mismatch based on recent form, both men carry significant name value, and their personalities alone could make it a major draw if the UFC decides to cash in on the drama. At this point, it's unclear whether the UFC is seriously considering booking the grudge match, but given the intensity of the rivalry, the trash talk, and the potential box office appeal, it wouldn't be shocking to see the two finally settle their differences in the cage. For Garbrandt, it's a chance at redemption and relevance. For O'Malley, it would be another opportunity to silence a critic and put on a show doing it. Either way, if the fight does get made, it promises to be explosive both in and out of the octagon.